Trump. Simply the best. The narcissist mindset. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. Donald Trump is an excellent example of the narcissist. He provides examples of many facets of the way that the narcissist behaves, mainly because he doesn't operate with a facade. What you see is what you get. He has a particular mindset, which all narcissists have, which is, I'm the best. Some narcissists are obvious about this. They boast and brag about how brilliant they are, although the reality is mismatched as to what they are. And therefore you have the common example of where the narcissist is deluded, embellishing their successes, stealing other people's success, in order to make it look like they are the ones which are the achievers. They talk about how brilliant they are, but their brilliance doesn't exist or is entirely superficial. In other instances, this I'm the best mindset isn't demonstrated in such an overt fashion, but is done in a more passive-aggressive way, often seen with mid-range narcissists, particularly those of middle range A and middle range B, whereby they'll say, for instance, well, I'm the best at this, I don't understand why I've not got the promotion. So they won't necessarily go around being bombastic about their brilliance, but they will complain and whinge about how they've been passed over for favourable treatment, a bonus or a promotion, that they should have gone first because they are the one that's most popular. Again, they're invariably driven by delusion, which causes them to think that they're better than they actually are. But rather than necessarily brag about it, they use it in a passive-aggressive way to complain about how they haven't been given the acknowledgement that they should receive. In some instances, the narcissist will brag about their brilliance, and they are brilliant. They actually have the substance to back it up. But at the heart of it all is this mindset of, I am the best. And by understanding this, it helps you realise why it is that the narcissist maintains this attitude of how I'm always right and you're always wrong. I'm always correct. You're the one that doesn't understand. Because since the narcissism is always telling the narcissist that they are the best, it therefore follows that they must always be right because, hey, they are the expert. They must be correct about what they're saying because they know more about this particular topic than anybody else. Therefore, it follows you must be wrong because they are the grand poobah of all things of that particular type of knowledge. It's this mindset, which is at the beating heart of the way that the narcissist sees the world, that drives the narcissist to assert control over people using their brilliance, either real or perceived. The lack of constraint with regard to their bragging or passive-aggressive whinging furthermore allows the application of certain manipulations to enable the narcissist to gain that control and draw the fuel. I'm going to play for you now a clip which somebody else has put together containing all of the, or many of the instances whereby Donald Trump, in his usual bombastic style, tells us all about how brilliant he is, how he's the best, how he's the expert. It's quite entertaining to see just how many times he does it and how often he's done it over a period of time, and the various topics that it relates to. Have a look at this.
Nobody knows this stuff better than me.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do, and income than I do.
Nobody knows more about construction than I do.
Nobody knows more about campaign finance than I do.
I know more about drones than anybody. Nobody knows much more about technology, this type of technology, certainly, than I do. Nobody knows more about technology than me. Nobody in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump. I know the H-1B, I know the H-2B. Nobody knows it better than me.
I know more about ISIS than the generals do, believe me. I understand things. I comprehend very well, okay? Better than, I think, almost anybody.
And by the way, who knew the other side of the picture better than me? I knew it.
Nobody knows more about environmental impact statements than me. I understand the power of Facebook.
maybe better than almost anybody.
I know more about renewables than any human being on Earth. Nobody knows more about polls than me.
I know more about courts than any human being on earth.
I know more about steelworkers than anybody that's ever run for office.
I know more about golf than Obama knows. Nobody knows more about banks than I do. Nobody knows more about trade than me.
Well, obviously, he doesn't know about nuclear weapons. I know more about nuclear weapons than he'll ever know.
I understand the tax laws better than almost anyone.
Who knows more about lawsuits than I do? I'm the king.
I know more about offense and defense than they will ever understand.
Nobody even understands it but me. It's called devaluation.
I understand money better than anybody.
I understand the system better than anybody. Nobody knows more about debt than I do. No.
How about that then? The man is a polymath, isn't he? He knows everything and better than nearly everybody or everybody. He knows more about taxes and income and construction and drones and campaign finance, technology and infrastructure, the H1B and the H2B, ISIS, environmental impact statements. He knows more about polls, courts, steelworkers, golf, banks, trade, nuclear weapons, lawsuits, offence and defence, money, the debt, and the system. You'll notice that in some instances you might agree that perhaps he is rather well acquainted with lawsuits. But simply the fact is that of all of those things, they're wild boasts, that there are experts who will know more about them than Donald Trump. Quite clearly. Why does he say this? And you'll notice that the frequency of this language, the repeated, nobody knows better, I know more, almost nobody knows as much as I do, the repetition of that message is the level at which his narcissism repeatedly has to use that phrase because his vocabulary isn't that wide. Now, that is both a disadvantage in some respects and an advantage in others because it means that a particular audience that he communicates to finds him easy to understand, and that is a particular advantage for him. In other instances, it makes him appear less statesmanlike and prone to ridicule as a consequence of utilising language that is somewhat simplistic. Others will argue he's an effective communicator. But the fact is, that is what his narcissism chooses to utilise. And, commensurate with his status as an upper lesser type B narcissist, this means that he boasts and he brags. He does this because he honestly believes it. He doesn't stand there thinking, I know this is a load of bullshit, but I'm going to say it anyway. He honestly believes that he is the best at these things, that he knows anything better, and he knows better than anybody else because his narcissism tells him that. His narcissism tells him that so that he will make the boast, which will provoke a response which will provide him with fuel. He issues such a declaration as a means of asserting control over anybody that dares to contradict him. His mindset is, I know everything about this particular topic. Therefore, it follows that I will be right and you will be wrong because I am the expert and you are not. I recall one instance when I think it was in relation to his golf course in Scotland and a development appertaining to the use of wind turbines. And he explained that he knew more about wind turbines than anybody else and that he was the expert in wind turbines. And somebody asked him, where's the evidence for that? Which, of course, is a threat to control. And you know what his response was? Me. I am the evidence. Now, ordinarily, you would just laugh at such a response because that's not evidence. You just saying that you are with no actual qualifications in relation to wind turbines, probably never built any, never constructed any, but simply turning around when somebody asks, well, hang on a minute, why do you say that you're an expert in wind turbines? What actual evidence is there to support that? Me. I am the evidence. Now, if he was a recognised expert in wind turbines, that might be, albeit still a boasting comment, an accurate one, but it's not. But this is the mindset of Donald Trump that is occasioned by his narcissism. He is simply the best, therefore that means that he's always right and you're always wrong, which aids him in the need to assert control and draw fuel from those around him. It's fairly simple in its approach, and it's hugely effective for him as a narcissist. And although many narcissists don't articulate it in the same way that Donald Trump does, that mindset of being simply the best is what is at the beating heart of any and all narcissists. In a way, Donald Trump is simply more honest about his usage of this by declaring it and showing the world that that's what's driving him. But in actual fact, all narcissists, although it will manifest in a different way, operate in a similar fashion. Here, you just have a very obvious manifestation of it in Donald Trump, which is true for many of things that the US president does. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for watching.